It's December 26th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with the situation over in the Gaza Strip. Palestinian health authorities said Monday that 250 people were killed and twice as many were wounded in the previous 24 hours. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Hamas must be destroyed as one of the three prerequisites for peace in the region. In his Christmas message on Monday, Pope Francis expressed hope for efforts to ease tensions on the Korean Peninsula through dialogue and reconciliation. The pontiff says the dialogue and reconciliation can produce conditions for lasting peace. Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny has been found in a remote prison colony in the Arctic nearly 3 weeks after going missing. Navalny is serving a 19-year prison sentence on charges of extremism, which began in August. Israel intensified its attacks in Gaza even on Christmas Day, with some 250 Palestinians killed in a 24-hour period. Israel's finance ministry is expecting the armed conflict to last another 2 months at a further cost of $14 billion. Lee Seung-jae reports.
Israel on Monday intensified its attack in Gaza, killing more than 100 people at the Maghazi refugee camp, with Palestinian authorities saying some 250 Palestinians have been killed over the past 24 hours. Christmas Eve in Gaza was also marred by heavy bombardments from the Israeli military in its continued fight against Hamas, which led to the leveling of buildings and injuries to over 500 people. With temperatures dropping and poor weather conditions, Palestinian refugees are struggling to keep themselves warm during the winter season. The New York Times reported on Sunday that frigid winter conditions combined with rain have left tents utterly useless, with many seen only with thin blankets to keep themselves warm. The Israeli Finance Ministry believes the armed conflict between its military and Hamas will last at least another 2 months. It said another $14 billion will be needed for security and other expenses for next year, meaning the near tripling of its budget deficit. However, the military's deputy budget commissioner raised the possibility that the conflict with the Palestinian militant group could stretch further, resulting in even more money being spent on the armed conflict. Meanwhile, according to the Wall Street Journal on Monday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said there are 3 prerequisites for peace: the elimination of Hamas, the demilitarization of Gaza, and the Palestinian society being de-radicalized. He said that in the process of achieving peace, Israel will continue to act in full compliance with international law. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Pope Francis on Monday delivered a message of peace on the Korean Peninsula, calling for tensions in the region to be resolved through dialogue and reconciliation. Speaking in front of the crowd gathered at St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican, the Pope delivered his official Christmas message, Urbi et Orbi, saying he hopes tensions on the Korean Peninsula will be alleviated through dialogue and reconciliation. He said through that the region can achieve lasting peace. The Pope also expressed his concerns about conflicts around the world. President Yoon wished all Koreans a joyful Christmas, pledging to work harder with the government to enhance people's livelihoods. Attending a church service on Monday, the South Korean leader said that Christmas is full of the love of Jesus Christ, who humbled himself from the state of being God to the lowest place on earth to take on the burden of people's sins. He said he hoped to turn the sparks of hope across society into a practice of Jesus' love through greater efforts with the government. Yoon also offered his condolences for those who lost their lives in accidents, including in a fire at an apartment building in Seoul, pledging to do his utmost for public safety. The United Nations Refugee Agency has called on China to ensure human rights for North Korean refugees ahead of a UN review. The UN High Commissioner for Refugees posted a recommendation on Monday, saying it recommends that China ensures that all persons of all nationalities, including those from North Korea seeking asylum in China, have access to asylum procedures and are granted with humanitarian space. Now, the recommendation comes amid reports of severe human rights abuses of North Korean defectors who are subject to human trafficking and forced repatriation to the north, where they could face harsh punishment. China is set to undergo a universal periodic review by the UN in January. North Korea is set to hold a key party meeting this week. This is when the regime reviews district state policies and sets policy goals for the new year. Now, what to expect from this year's edition? We turn to Yako's list this morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for joining us, Yako. What do you think the North will announce as its biggest achievements of the year? Its spy satellite launch will no doubt be one of them, right?
Yes, certainly. North Korea successfully launched its reconnaissance satellite into Earth orbit before South Korea could do the same. And that is symbolically a big achievement. But putting up only one spy satellite is practically of limited advantage. Still, for a country that is under international sanctions and with options for international cooperation in technology that are limited, this is an impressive achievement. Another impressive achievement is the call sent out to North Korean citizens in other countries that it is time to finally come back home to North Korea after 3.5 years of being shut out because of the self-imposed corona isolation. As far as I'm aware, this hasn't caused a large number of defections or high-level defections, and I imagine that is something that the government in Pyongyang was probably worried about possibly happening, especially after so long of having only long-distance contact and limited contact with the fatherland. Now, in November 2022, so just about a little bit over a year ago, Kim Jong-un first brought out his daughter into this public spotlight at the test firing of an intercontinental ballistic missile. Since then, he has taken her to a range of public events this year. So at the moment, we don't know yet whether Kim Jong-un has decided that his daughter will succeed him in the event of his death or incapacitation. But if that is the case, then what he is doing by taking her to these events and having her photographs appear in the state-controlled press with titles like Beloved Child and Noble Child, then he is making her known to the North Korean public and creating her legitimacy and clearing the way for her future. So that's kind of an achievement as well. Now, in terms of diplomacy, North Korea has managed to make its relationship with Russia much stronger and closer than it has been since the end of the Soviet Union 30 years ago. Now, apparently, North Korea achieved at least one shipment of aims to Russia to use in its war against Ukraine. So that's also an achievement, although I have seen reports that the quality of those weapons leaves much to be desired. And then lastly, in terms of agriculture, North Korea has surprised many by bringing in a bigger harvest than the previous year. According to South Korea's Rural Development Administration, the crop output this year in North Korea was 6% up on last year, which is quite a good achievement, given that last year the UN estimated that almost half the North Korean population suffered from malnutrition. But while 6% is good news, there are still food production shortages, which North Korea compensated for by importing grain from both China and Russia.
So many developments made during the past year. Now, Yako, I want to go back to the North Spy satellite launch. What we do know for sure is that North Korea will not satisfy with just one reconnaissance satellite launch. How likely is it that North Korea will actually provide a timeline for another reconnaissance satellite launch?
Yes, as I said before, putting only one spy satellite into orbit is of practically limited advantage. You want to have a network. And according to one military expert that I spoke with, in order to have pretty consistent remote censoring coverage of a location like South Korea or the United States or Guam, you need to have at least 5 satellites in lower Earth orbit, each of them moving around the Earth in a different orbit so that you can have eyes on the ground at all times. Now, it's hard to know when these launches for future satellites will occur because the dates are set often by technical, atmospheric, and other considerations, like perhaps auspicious days in the North Korean calendar. So we might see a launch, for example, around the birth dates of Kim Jong-il in February or Kim Il-sung in April. But there's always a number of factors that work into determining those dates. So it's hard to say at this stage.
Definitely.
But we can certainly expect more.
Right. That's why there was a delay last time. Now, Kim Jong-un normally issues his New Year's message every year after the key party meeting. Yako, do you think there'll be another round of hostile messages against South Korea and the U.S. like last year?
Yeah, as you say, Kim Jong-un, normally he gives a New Year's message of some sort. Now, in the past, up until 2019, he used to give a speech. Like in that year, he gave a televised address sitting in his office at the Workers' Party headquarters. But since 2020, instead of a New Year's message, he simply gave a report on decisions made at the Workers' Party plenary session. And so last year, that speech, which he gave in front of the headquarters building of the Workers' Party Korea, he mentioned, for example, ordering an exponential expansion of the number of nuclear weapons and also the development of a more powerful intercontinental ballistic missile that could strike the U.S. mainland and the launch of the military reconnaissance satellite. So these are all three things that were mentioned in the speech at the end of the last plenary session. So we can certainly expect similar things this year, but what exactly he'll say, I can't say. I don't want to speculate, but I see no indications that he will strike a reconciliatory tone with either South Korea or the United States.
Right, Yako, you mentioned this earlier, the developing ties with Russia and China. North Korea will probably brag those deepening ties with those countries, right?
He certainly could do. Of course, I don't want to speculate too much on what he will and will not say, but if he chooses to talk about the international situation that his country finds itself in, then it will make sense to talk up the strong ties with Russia and also with China, to emphasize to the United States and to South Korea that Pyongyang is not alone, and that it has powerful friends and allies. But it's also possible that Kim might not focus on the international situation, but he might focus only on domestic issues and inter-Korean issues and leave the diplomatic issues for another time.
All right, Yako, thanks so much for joining us this morning. You have a great day.
Thank you for having us.
Apples, pears, and mandarin oranges are fruits that are supposed to come with winter, but it seems like they come at a higher price this year, making some consumers turn away. Our Kim Do-yeon explains why.
It's not been easy for South Koreans to pick up their favorite fruits at grocery stores recently, with prices soaring.
We eat a lot of fruits, but I can't decide because they're too expensive.
In fact, strawberries are 20% more expensive than they were last December. Apples cost 21% more than last year, and mandarin oranges are up more than 10%. Experts say the climate is the biggest factor.
The temperatures were unusually low during the blossoming period. There was frost and hail with fungal disease during the harvests. The supply is lower than last year.
Due to the shortage in apples and pears, their prices are expected to remain high or even increase until the harvest season in July to August. As for strawberries and citrus fruits, since it is their peak shipping period, the prices are expected to decrease from their current level. However, their prices are still projected to remain slightly higher than last year.
Mandarin orange production isn't low, but because they're relatively cheaper than other fruits, consumers are turning to them instead. It is driving up the prices.
The government is tackling the situation with tax cuts on imported fruits like bananas, but it's not having a major effect due to reduced overseas shipments. However, more plans are in place to indirectly stabilize prices, including using 24.8 billion won or $19 million from this month's reserve funds to support discount events. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Seoul's Bukchon and Seochon Hanok villages are must-offs for visitors to Seoul. Now, without actually spending a night there, people can enjoy the beauty and warmth of a Korean traditional home at these new Public Hanok Lounges. Our Choi Soo-hyung was there.
Seoul is a place where tradition meets modernity. In Jongno-gu districts, Bukchon Hanok Village and Seochon Hanok Village, visitors can feel this distinct Korean vibe. And to allow visitors to see inside these traditional buildings, the villagers have created Public Hanok Lounges. In the lounge of this traditional Korean house, you can experience how such a building is set up within the outer walls and also get information about tourist attractions nearby. While strolling through Bukchon Hanok village, you can take a short break at Bukchon Lounge, which is open to the public for free. Even without an overnight stay, it allows visitors to explore the hidden interiors of Hanoks and to experience the warmth of Hanok life, enjoying a Korean-style tea ceremony with delightful conversations.
And so, to be honest, we just kind of walked in, just like we're walking in all the different Hanoks in this area. And this was an amazing, tea ceremony and a great kind of concierge service.
I think we like to go with the flow a lot, and sometimes it's like when you go with the flow when you travel, then you get lucky to experience and having a very unique experience.
Yeah.
And I think like this was definitely something that we will remember in our memories of Korea.
There is also a baggage storage service, and on Fridays, the lounges also offer a Korean language class. They are open from Tuesday to Saturday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. While Bukchon Lounge introduces the tradition of Hanoks, Seochon Lounge has a different charms, showing how Hanoks can blend with modern lifestyles.
Here, not only Korean crafts, but also Bauhaus-style furniture is on display, so people seem to be amazed and have fun, thinking that, wow, the furniture can fit in a hanok like this way.
Visitors to Bukchon Lounge and Seochon Lounge can enjoy a delightful time sipping warm tea, experiencing the everyday life of Seoul's Hanoks and learning about their values. Seochon, Arirang News.
What could better add to the festive mood than the Christmas classic, the Nutcracker? Ballet companies are adding some exciting changes to the more than century-old masterpiece this year. Our cultural correspondent Song Yoo-jin has the story.
The beloved holiday classic is back. Every year around Christmas, ballet companies from around the world present their take on Tchaikovsky's The Nutcracker. This year, a number of ballet companies have infused a new flavor into this time-honored tradition. The Korean National Ballet and Universal Ballet, the two major ballet companies in Korea, have introduced new faces into the main roles, breaking away from the tradition of selecting principal dancers. Ballerina Chung Eun-ji joined the Korean National Ballet in 2021. From her first year, she was an understudy for the main character, Marie. Her debut on Wednesday marked her first time dancing in a leading role.
I still remember watching our company's version of the Nutcracker when I was a kid. This is a role I've always wanted to play. I'm happy and a bit nervous at the same time.
Universal Ballet's Yurim joined the company as a soloist after 7 years at the Hungarian National Ballet. She is playing Clara, another name for Marie. For her, it's a childhood dream come true.
I've danced in the Nutcracker before, but this experience with Universal Ballet is special. When I was young, I had the chance to perform as young Clara with the UBC. The ballerinas who shared the stage with me at that time have now become principal dancers, so preparing this piece with them was particularly meaningful.
Beyond Korea, the Boston Ballet, one of the 4 major ballet companies in the United States, has chosen all 5 of its Korean dancers to play the main roles in the Nutcracker. Among them is Han So-hae, the Boston Ballet's first Korean principal dancer, who's been with the company since 2012.
I'm the oldest among the Korean dancers, and I feel both nervous and excited when I see them perform. My sincere wish is for my younger colleagues to dance happily and healthily for a long time because they're so talented.
With its intricate choreography, dazzling set, beautiful scores, and fresh new faces, the Nutcracker continues to enchant audiences around the world and bringing the Christmas spirit. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Kim Si-young, and now we turn over to stories from around the world. We begin in Russia, where the imprisoned opposition politician Alexei Navalny has been tracked down and found at a penal colony north of the Arctic Circle. Now, Navalny's whereabouts had been unknown for almost 3 weeks after he was transferred on December 6th from a previous prison. His spokesperson said that Navalny was found on 25th of December and that he had been moved to IK3 penal colony in Karp in the Yamalo-Nenets Autonomous District of Western Siberia, about 2,000 kilometers northeast of Moscow. Alexei Navalny has been considered one of Russian President Vladimir Putin's leading opponents and has been in prison since 2021. Navalny was expected to be transferred to a special regime colony after receiving an additional sentence of 19 years in August for charges including extremist activities, on top of the 11.5 years he was already serving. Now, Türkiye's defense ministry on Monday said that at least 26 Kurdish militants had been killed in strikes by its air force in Syria and northern Iraq. The attack followed the killing of 12 Turkish soldiers in northern Iraq on Saturday in a battle with the outlawed Kurdistan Workers' Party. The Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces also announced on Monday that at least 8 civilians were killed in the strikes, including 2 women in northeast Syria. Ankara's defense minister said on Sunday that 30 Kurdistan Workers' Party had been neutralized in northern Iraq following cross-border operations, bringing the total number of PKK militants killed since the weekend to 56. The Kurdistan Workers' Party is designated a terrorist group by Türkiye, the US and the European Union. On Sunday, British billionaire Jim Ratcliffe announced his acquisition of 25% of the English Premier League football club, Manchester United. The 71-year-old owner of petrochemical giant Ineos has paid around $1.3 billion for the 25% of the shares. That gives him control of football operations and a say in the commercial side of the club. But the American Glazer family will keep their majority stake. As part of the deal, Ratcliffe has agreed to provide around $300 million in infrastructure investment for United's Old Trafford Stadium. Lastly, in China, Beijing has recorded its longest cold wave since records began in 1951. According to state-run media, one Beijing weather observatory said that since the temperature first dropped to below 0 degrees on December 11th, it remained so for more than 300 hours. Temperatures in the city frequently fell below -10 degrees Celsius this month, while in parts of China's north and northeast, temperatures as low as -40 degrees were recorded.
Hello, I'm Lee Ji-hyun with the latest weather updates. It's about time we got some relief from the bitter blast of cold air. I mean, it was just too cold last week with on and off snow. After much bearable morning temperatures, afternoon highs will also hover around norms today and for most of this week. Meanwhile, ultra-fine dust levels will be high in many western parts of the country during the day, with a dry advisory in place for many of the east coast regions. Meanwhile, mountainous regions in Gangwon-do province are under a strong wind advisory, so extra fire precautionary measures are a must around this time. Daily highs should be 4 to 5 degrees higher in most places. Seoul topping out at 7 degrees, Daejeon at 9 degrees this afternoon under partly sunny skies. Then we can expect calmer weather for the New Year's holiday weekend. Temperatures should stay well above seasonal averages through New Year's Day, but air quality will be bad for most of this week. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back tomorrow for Wednesday's edition at the same time, 9 a.m. Korea time.